you know, I don't mind driving that kind of distance as long as I got
it's
some
back
like
and forth. There's
beach or
no-
something to look at, or you know what I mean. If I'm going to
Yeah,
Florida,
they
but
did that
no.
there.
Well, I had a meeting last week with
Like, I'm not looking at
vascular surgeon.
beach, but I know the
So I
industry.
said we can't operate on it because it was kept splintered. We would just cause more damage. So I said, gee, what are you telling me?
Well, I do
There's nothing we can do.
I go down.
Your blood pressure.
It's good because I got two drivers now. Both my kids.
Yeah, I talked to Janie today.
December 17th.
Yeah, we'll get you out. I talked to Janie today. I talked to the son today. I talked to Jimmy today. Or his attorney.
Which is
So
all right, 'cause
I'll have
decided to stay home.
all three of them in this week to sign contracts and set the closing up. I talked to you about claim title, and I'll have the closing set up soon. So I just wanted to make sure we were totally done with Jimmy, and we are.
Oh, I don't think so.
So make sure he knows I talked
Not
to
in the public
Janie
like
today,
this.
though.
But I'm about ready. Earlier today. Hey, Mel might bring it up. Hey, Mel knows all about it. Go ask him if he's going to bring it up.
That's all right.
You've got like 2 minutes after the meeting.
Of course.
I want to talk to you about something.
Can you see me? Yes, of course.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Joe.
How are you?
Good.
How's your weekend?
Good. Long.
Yeah, good.
A lot of driving, buddy.
Really? Where were
Tony, what's new with you,
I
man?
went from West Virginia to Illinois.
Didn't we give him a counter offer?
I got home at 2 o'clock in the morning last night.
Not vote to convey.
Where you at?
I drove from West Virginia.
I don't know where you are.
And then from home to the Vincennes University. Took my daughter over and then turned around and drove back.
That's a long trip.
That's that long.
Is this the guy down there, Mike Lawrence's?
No, it's the parking
Yeah,
lot over here where
Vincent
we
is a long
own
way.
Oh, yeah.
one
And there ain't no
parking
good way
space.
getting there.
Oh, yeah.
One line of
US
it.
50.
Somehow he got that property when we
Yeah,
sold
well,
it.
it was rough.
You know, I don't think redevelopment
We
did
had to go
anything
to-
with it.
She had a softball
When,
tournament
since
in
we've been
West Virginia.
in power,
So we took
but you
32
guys
all the
dealt
way
with it
across.
once because
Parkersburg, West
I know
Virginia.
Mario brought it up
That's where I
a couple
drove
of
from
years ago to
yesterday. I
you
drove
guys
from
because they didn't know
Parkersburg,
about it and they had been maintaining it and
Stop,
mowing it
let
and
her
all that
change her
stuff.
clothes and take a
But I
shower.
don't think we talked about it. Yeah, we did because I said to Mario, I said, is this the one that you came up a couple of years ago? He said,
She
yeah.
was with you all that time.
I remember what we
Made
did.
him an offer. He turned
Stayed
it
down
down.
there.
Yes, I do remember.
Vincennes and
I do remember
I
we
drove
talked
back
about
by myself.
it. So what's he asking for now?
So we did not vote to convey a counter
She has to. She's in that program over at the high school where she
Okay.
gets her associate's degree.
Right. What grade she in?
She'll be a senior, so she has to do 2 weeks over there during this summer between
Who's gonna do
junior
it?
and senior
Thanks for
year
talking to me on
in order to
Thursday.
get her associates. So that's what she's doing. She got this week and next
If
week.
he does it, I'll talk about it. But I won't bring it up
It's a
unless he
great
does.
program. They got them kids graduating.
cut my nuts off,
From
man.
high school.
This thing is on you. Excuse that, folks, but you just heard.
Yeah.
Where Mr. Cook is at.
Yeah, she goes. She just graduated. Bailey is bummed out because she missed all of her friends' graduation parties. And
I remember
missed
talking
graduation.
about it. Whatever it was, the guy didn't want what we want, what we
Three
offered.
different items.
Does that make sense?
And these are copies that have been taken,
Under fluke anyway.
not original.
I told her, I said,
We're talking about this thing here, and
Won't come
I remember we came up and he turned us down on whatever it was, but
I had all boys. And I've had my share.
2 years ago.
I'll tell you.
Hey, Brian,
This is her
2 years
year
ago,
doing
that
the
came up
summer
to city council. They didn't even know they owned it.
And
That he owned it, actually. They've been maintaining it.
she's got a tournament this weekend coming up.
Yeah.
So I got to drive.
He
up
owns the
Friday,
majority
pick her
of it,
up,
if I
bring
remember
her back
right.
to the tournament, and then take her back Sunday.
We made him an offer.
And then drive back. And then the following week, I go pick her up on our way to Chicago for another tournament. So,
Yeah, we
one
could
thing
find
no
it
fun.
the email.
Once I get through this month, though, it'll
Leslie,
be
I don't know if they
smooth
approve it.
sailing.
But I think first fundamental.
And I'm cooking
What
chicken
did I ask him about bringing?
Friday nights over here. With the
Hey,
Lions
Brian.
Club.
So you?
Provide value to the city.
I'm gonna ask him right now.
We're having about 400 dinners.
We're gonna give Aaron a
It's
few
the
minutes.
night that everybody calls and they, you guys deliver.
Well, next group. This is
Yeah,
our first
he can come
time doing
twice
what
to the
we're
next
doing
one.
this year. But then the TV, you know, drivers introductions and boat thing over there Friday night. The drivers. So, but then we're also.
Yeah.
So people can come in and get chicken, buy, you know.
That makes us feel warm and fuzzy. But I'm excited. I think it's amazing. It's a great idea. Anything we can do to get him into town.
So we got about 180 dinners left to cook. So hopefully we get some
He kind of let me
coming over
do
and
that
eat chicken.
too.
I think so. I'll kind of get it out.
Oh, you will then.
Well, in that end, we
It's a
can,
pretty good
we
deal.
have so many options.
You get a
We
half a
can
chicken,
just stay out of it, and he can buy directly
coleslaw,
as long as he works with
beans,
us and is stringing.
and
Or we can buy
gravy.
stay with stringing, or a combination of both, because he's
lot of
a very
chicken.
willing partner, and he knows that we're willing,
Half the chickens
to add some
as
incentives
well.
to.
You guys
It's really, I think it doesn't matter, but wherever it is, if it's there, or
How long
probably
you
also
want it
even one of the
take to get one
3
done.
buildings.
Chicken?
Or 2 buildings.
Well,
we
we
could,
could,
wherever it is, it'll be a centerpiece for the
we
whole.
cook it up in pieces. We do breasts in one
And that's
cooker, we'll do
sustainable.
thighs,
That
we'll
gets us
do,
in
you
our
know,
music
we mix it
video.
up.
That gets us
So it just depends on which food. The breasts take longest. We'd usually do about 20 breasts.
getting on
At a
7.
time.
You're counting on me to be the computer tech? Oh, you're gonna get your heart broken.
You just pretended like your phone died.
Once in a while, have a work
Well, see,
session.
that's why we got a sign.
Remember how we talked about last meeting?
And we're all phone calls.
We usually do it in October.
I told you that.
So it's gonna be a warm.
I just thought maybe you could just
He's
roll into it.
a left brain kind of guy.
All depends upon what we got going.
Type,
When
and
we need it, when we
he's
need
excited about it. He's passionate. He's not a.
Starting with.
He's
leave
not a
it
guy
like it
who's
is
gonna
until
give
we
a couple
need it.
numbers and hang up. But
We
that's
can always call a meeting.
And I think maybe that's what gets it done in that business. You know, I think you gotta have a numbers guy with you, but to be the
Okay.
leading force, you have to just be creative and look at that he's still taking every day.
How do you feel about that?
It's amazing.
They keep putting 6 figures in there.
No.
Last season,
How many we'd have to
they
buy
didn't
if
have
we
to
did
do
This one,
improvements in places
where's
like
she? This one
What-
here, I don't know
what they did
what
to
she's
like
gonna ask for.
this one?
Yeah.
I know who she is.
They do things.
I'm well aware
I
who
think
she is.
there's
I don't know what
eyes
she's
to
asking.
his
No, you
vision,
didn't get it.
not necessarily
did.
say what's the minimum, you know,
Fair enough.
which is what you could easily.
Fair enough. I know you went around with her.
No, you did that.
With Pat and the whole thing.
That's not
Brian.
I guess Aaron's not gonna make it.
All right. No, Aaron's out of town. He's on a bus tour for the retirement, for the community center.
Oh, my God, he has to get stuck on that bus.
Yeah. No, he's the leader on it, kind
We
of.
should have had him phone in.
We put him on the screen real
He's
quick.
70.
Where'd they go?
Me and Kathleen.
Aaron's on it. You know how the center sends people.
Well, it's kinda supposed to be nice this weekend.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah. So is the, we've got Friday
I have no idea, but I know.
and Saturday.
Somebody went over to see him today.
And Saturday's the main one, Friday.
Plus he's gonna leave us.
I don't know.
Yeah, music
All
there.
right, well, I guess
But they're
we're
racing
going
on
since
Friday.
Aaron's gone.
That's how I found out.
So I don't know what
They are?
the level
I was
is.
trying to take my
We have to
hammer.
shut our office down early.
Hey, Paul.
2 hours early Friday.
There we go.
Seymour.
Okay, we can do that.
I was scared.
Okay, now. And then you can just.
I was gonna call you and ask you, and I didn't.
Oh, but she.
We're gonna bring to order the June 12th meeting of the Lawrenceburg Redevelopment Commission. Roll call, please.
Executive Director Brian Mismore. Here. Chairman Tony Abbott.
Here.
Vice Chairman Aaron Cook is absent. Secretary Dennis Hutchins.
Present.
Member Bob Rebolt.
Here.
Member Paul Seymour Sr.
Present?
School Board Member Brian Johnson.
Here.
City Attorney Del Walton.
Okay, if everybody's had a chance to look at the meetings in our packet, I'll take a motion to approve or,
I'd make such a motion.
I'll second it.
okay, I got first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes passed. Was there another set in the packet?
There's 2
Yes.
sets.
Got the work
Work
session.
session and the last one.
Okay, if everybody's had a chance to look at the work session minutes, I'll take a motion to approve or,
I'll make that motion.
motion to approve. I have a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Paul, all in favor?
Aye.
Those minutes passed. Any announcements from the board?
No.
And nothing, go to the financial report.
As of June 6th, the balance for redevelopment is $3,197,408.29, and after our projected monies going to projects, it's $1,775,044.02.
All righty. All right, moving on to new business. We're going to change the agenda a little bit so we can get a video in. TV working. We're going to move up urban fast forward. Kathleen, would you?
Thank you. I'm Kathleen Norris, and I am delighted to be here today. I have visited Lawrenceburg several times over the last few years and watched your increasing momentum. And I was asked to come here and talk to you just a little bit about Urban Fast Forward, what we do. And we are a real estate consulting and planning firm. I want to go back here and say that this is the lead members of our team, and the interesting part about our firm is that even our real estate agents are trained as planners. It's an odd, I'm not sure that it will always be the case, but I am the only person in my own firm who does not have a planning degree. We work exclusively in the creation and recreation of great urban neighborhoods and city centers. This is just a sample of our assignments. We have worked in Over the Rhine. We worked on a project in Lexington. We're working right now on a project in Indianapolis, which is misspelled, in the Cincinnati neighborhoods of Walnut Hills, College Hill, Camp Washington, North Side, Bond Hill. There are other neighborhoods that aren't listed there, and in the city of Blue Ash, which is a regional city just outside Cincinnati. I am here today because of the work that the city of Cincinnati did in Over the Rhine, starting in 2006. The picture to the left was the corner of 12th and Vine as it looked in 2006. The picture to the right was the corner of 12th and Vine as it looked about a year and a half later. One of the things that Cincinnati did was take the worst part of town and completely revitalize it. And we did that a block at a time. 12th and Vine is very important because that's the block where we started. The reason that we did this, and I think this is relevant to all cities, the reason that we did this was that at the time, Cincinnati had 17 Fortune 1000 companies. We're now down, per the latest report, to 13, but we had a talent problem. One of our chief executives was asked, it was Procter & Gamble, and when they got a new chief executive, he was asked to promise that he would keep Procter & Gamble's headquarters in Cincinnati. And he said, if you want to keep my headquarters, you have to give me a city I can recruit to. And that really was the driver for Cincinnati in saying, we need to look at what young people want. We need to look at how we can keep them in our city. As I always say, the job here is to keep our children and grandchildren and get everybody else's. You remember the old story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin, and he magically piped all the children away. And that's happening in a lot of communities because they aren't delivering what that up-and-coming generation wants. The other end of that spectrum, by the way, is most of us here fall into the baby boomer generation. And between the baby boomers and the millennials, that's 70% of the United States population. And they want urban places. They want restaurants. They want walkability. They want bike paths. They want concerts in the park. They want all that experiential lifestyle, which is really something that has come up in the last 10 years. I created the retail district in Over the Rhine. I did the concept, and then I did the first phase recruiting. And in about 2.5 years, I brought about 25 new businesses to that area. And if you have a chance, or if you have been to Cincinnati, I really recommend it to you as an interesting area. It's also 500 acres of historic buildings. But that's why I'm here, because I started on the team that turned around Over the Rhine. We're now working in Walnut Hills, one of our neighborhoods, and this is another interesting area, a neighborhood that needed a lot of revitalization. We have a client up there called the Model Group. We worked on recruiting tenants for them. They did residential over retail. We've helped them fill the retail spaces. We also worked very strongly on issues of neighborhood perception, which is a very important part in creating transition. We work closely with landlords, we work closely with community groups. We don't start with a point of view about what a neighborhood should be. What we want to know is what the neighborhood wants to be, and we talk in our business or in our office about discovering the true personality of any area and the true assets of any area, and then bringing those forward in a way that creates momentum. College Hill, Cincinnati has wonderful murals. That's one of our murals. College Hill is another community of 14,000 residents. They have about 64% African American. They have 15% over 65. College Hill has a very strong concentration of seniors, and about 21% of college-educated adults. And what you can't quite see there, but what they have put on, my team has put on the bottom, is just kind of these word clouds, which when we did public engagement in community, this was what the community told us they wanted. When we said to them, what values matter to you, what retail is missing, what things do you want to see in your community, those were the things that they brought up. And I would add here that we can't always deliver everything a community wants. In College Hill, they want a grocery. That's a really tough sector, but it's very important to us to work within the framework of the community's wishes, even as we may be pushing them forward into a future that they haven't yet envisioned. This is just a sample of how we work when we do planning. This is a map of their business district that identifies where their existing assets are. This is a building that is now being built that we're doing the retail leasing for. This is actually a senior facility. It's affordable senior housing. It's about 50 units. It's being built by Episcopal Retirement Systems. And sometimes my own team amazes me, because we had a meeting with the leadership on this project and said to them, well, what would you like to see in your building? And they said, well, you know, we'd really like fitness. And if we could have maybe a little deli. And I thought, oh, Lordy, why don't you make it hard? Well, about 2 weeks later, one of my young agents came in and said, okay, I've got them fitness and a deli. And I thought, okay, that's really cool. So again, our goal is to help you define your objectives, but also to understand your objectives. Camp Washington, which is one of Cincinnati's industrial communities, but has a very strong residential base even now, was originally, until about the post-war era, was a community of about 10,000. And as the industrial residents or the companies that were based there hollowed out, so then did the community. The goal now is to bring it back. Again, just a demonstration of some of how our work looks when we present it. But again, this was a community that, it's really a maker community. And everybody came to us, everybody when we talked to on the young millennial side said, we're a maker community, we're a maker community, by which they meant we make sculptures and we make furniture and we make artisan products. And I said, that's great, you are a maker community because you also make soap and you make sausage and you make other things which you don't think of as part of a maker community, but are very much part of the backbone of Camp Washington. And when we figure out a strategy, a way forward for you, we have to make sure that we align both those sides of maker. That when we talk about maker, we don't mean artists and exclude the guy who gets up every day, takes a lunch bucket, and goes and makes sausage, because he is a traditional, long-time, very important resident of Camp Washington. So we try as much as we can to make sure that our work is inclusive. Again, Camp Washington, we came up with for them with a brand that is called Made in Camp. And we recommend that they try to get everything in there. They build that image of themselves as a maker community, by trying to get as many of their industries and artists as possible to brand their products as Made in Camp Washington. Blue Ash Summit Park is an interesting project, completely different from everything I've talked about. The city of Blue Ash was building a 100-acre park on half of the old Blue Ash Airport. And they did that because Blue Ash is a community that has 3 jobs for every citizen. They have about 45,000 people who leave the community at the end of the day and go and live someplace else. And they have about 15,000 residents. And those 45,000 people are essential to their financial survival. But increasingly, those 45,000 people are the millennials that we're talking about, especially since Blue Ash has got a lot of tech companies. And those tech companies are recruiting very, very heavily into that sector. So they said, we have the resource to build the kind of assets that would make Blue Ash special. So they built a 100-acre park. They have bike trails. They have walking trails. They have a playground. They're going to build a different kind of playground, which is going to be a more of a wild area. And they wanted to put restaurants in their park because they said, first of all, we have to feed for this corporate community that we have. They tell us they want places to take clients. They want places to have a business meeting. They want to maybe have a breakfast meeting. They want places for their team to have a drink after work. We'd like to meet some of that need. Plus, we have our own residents, and we would like to distinguish Blue Ash as a place to come to. Blue Ash, I love Blue Ash, and I'm not disparaging, but I think they are the world capital of the chain sub sandwich. Quiznos, Subway, Penn Station, all of those, because they have that workforce. We put a fine dining restaurant was the first one we put in there because they wanted something to serve their corporate community. We then opened an ice cream store because they wanted something for the families that are coming to the park and the moms who are coming to the playground. We then we had a client who developed a taco concept for them, which is in the park now. And then we put a restaurant called The Senate, which is one of our most popular downtown restaurants. And the owner is a young chef and his wife. The owners are a young chef and his wife who had moved up to this area and said, okay, I'm up here now with my 3 kids because this is what suits us to raise those children, but man, there is no place decent to eat up here. So he opened a second version of his restaurant up there, and they are now feeding in that park 900, 1,200, 1,400, close to 2,000 people a day. There's a line at every restaurant, and it's been a real supporter for the park, and we did what the city of Blue Ash asked us to do. The city manager, the mayor said to me very specifically, I don't want anybody to come to this park who can't find something to eat. A mom who's just here with her kids, I want her to be able to get a cup of coffee and a dish of ice cream for the kids. A businessman who wants to hold a fine dining dinner, fine. But I also want the family that just wants to, have a nice dinner before they walk or bike the park. So that was the hierarchy we built, something for everybody who might come to the park. $3 dish of ice cream, a $30 fine dining dinner with a cocktail. And as I say, this was a catalytic project for that community. That park is projected this year to attract over 1 million visitors. Now, Blue Ash does a ton of programming too, so, but it's a beautiful facility, and now they're building, you'll see on the left here, there's another 100 acres adjacent to the land of the park. We're now building a mixed-use development there, which will have retail, we'll have residential over retail, we'll have an office building, and we'll have a hotel. And this is actually going to change the community of Blue Ash. And you've done it here with the hotel that you built. I mean, you can see the impact that these projects can have. That's it. That's Urban Fast Forward. I like to think we're a small but mighty team. Questions?
Yes, I got one.
Yes,
P&G,
Yes, sir.
you go to P&G and they tell you, we'll stay if you do this. Who are you going to talk to here that's going to say, yeah, we're going to stay? Proximo? No.
Well, but is that your only objective? Do you have, is it about keeping the corporate community? Because it could be a different objective for you. It could be getting your tourists to come downtown.
Well, exactly, and that's what we need to do. It's just, when you look at Blue Ash, and I've been all around downtown and all that, they have so many people to draw from. Like that park anywhere else but Blue Ash might not have the people they've got with all the businesses and all the companies that are in there.
Well, I think the point you make is exactly the right one. You look at what you need to accomplish. Cincinnati needed to keep its corporate community. Blue Ash needed to distinguish itself amongst its competitors. Camp Washington needs to attract people to its neighborhood. Every community has something different. And I don't think there's a template that you can overlay and come in and say, okay, we're going to do this because this always works. Nothing always works. Some communities need to attract retail. Some communities have retail, need to attract restaurants. Some communities have restaurants, need to attract customers. Some communities need more residential in the downtown area. What is the need of the community? And I don't know the needs of Lawrenceburg. I haven't done the work, sir.
All right.
That's the first step. Do the work for us. Yes, sir.
I've been to Blue Ash, and I've been to the Senate more than once.
You've been there soon because they only opened about 3 weeks ago.
The Senate?
The Senate in Blue Ash only opened 3 weeks ago.
What Senate was I at?
You were in the Senate
Downtown.
downtown.
Downtown?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I gotta tell you, it was fantastic.
Well, thank
So
you.
is this the same guy that's doing it?
It is.
Well, then it's gotta be pretty good. You said that so many people don't live there that work there. It was a high percentage, right, the displacement? Where do they live?
They live outside the city. They might live in Kenwood, they might live in Montgomery, they might live in Evendale, they might live in Pleasant Ridge. It really depends. Blue Ash focused, and it was
How far are they driving in, I guess, really, is where?
I would guess, and I'm sure Blue Ash knows, but I would guess that the average person working in Blue Ash is not driving more than about 20 minutes.
Help me geographically. When I was at the Senate, I parked in a magnificent park, walked around a beautiful park.
Washington Park.
With fountains and
Yes.
and underground parking.
Yes.
And, I mean, that was phenomenal in itself. So this new park is bringing that many
Well, you
more-
were in Over the Rhine. When you were at the Senate,
Yeah.
you were in Over the Rhine, in the first area I
Well, it's all
touched on.
walking distance.
Yeah, but Blue Ash is to the north of the city, about 12 miles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's it's actually a different community.
Okay.
And the Senate is 1,400 square feet, which is a small restaurant downtown, and has gone to about 4,000 square feet,
Oh, much larger.
much larger.
Are
But they
are the hot dogs still $12.50?
Say it again? The hot dogs are still $12.50, but they still come with 3 meals and a side on top.
The hell of a hot dog.
Yeah. When that restaurant opened, people got so irate. And nowadays, as you would know, you get you have all these social media forums where you can come, and people who had never been there would get so huffy about how dare they charge $12.50 for a hot dog. And then they'd go there and they'd think, wow, that was 3 meals. That was a bargain.
Well, you know, you came here and you pushed some buttons with some slides and some conversation. What are you recommending to us?
I guess I'm recommending that we start a conversation about your needs.
Well, we started that tonight.
Okay?
So what do you have that you want to recommend to us? Anything?
I don't know yet, sir. I haven't done the work. And I truly don't come in, and many years ago,
Now
I
we're
was...
getting into the details.
Yeah. Many years ago, I was at a lunch, and a young man who was clearly a salesman stood up and he presented the services of his company, which were, he promised that he could rebuild your retail district. And I knew his company, and I knew what they do, and I watched people line up to talk to him, and I watched the mayor of a small community who was standing near me line up, and I watched this young man look at him and say, yes, sir, we can solve that problem for you. It'll be $75,000. I don't do that. I don't have a formula solution. I'm
That's great.
happy.
You work free.
Don't work free.
Oh, you don't?
Don't work free, but don't come to it with a fixed solution. What I'd like to know is what your objectives are, and then we'll figure out how we get there, and if we're the right ones to help.
Did you have some ideas from driving around Lawrenceburg? I know you did take a drive around Lawrenceburg. Do you see anything we need or how you can help us?
I always think that your main street, which in your case I think is Walnut,
Yes.
you gotta have more vitality on Main Street. You've gotta have more, and the cross streets, especially the ones, as in your case, as you get closer to the river. And you've done some terrific stuff since the first time I came to Lawrenceburg some years ago. You've done your event center, you've done your hotel, but you still, I would say you still need more residential. You need more density downtown. I talked to somebody who said she's now bringing her 3rd floor online as residential, all those buildings. And then we've got to think about who wants to live here and what their desires are and how you get them. But you've got a lot of economic drivers that other communities your size don't have. You've got the casino. You've got a lot of assets. I think the main thing it takes, and I guess I said when we were talking about Over the Rhine, I said we fixed it a block at a time. It took us 3 years to fix one block and approximately a boxcar full of money. But that was the block that changed everything. We decided that this was where we would work, and we would fix that block, and we would bring back the housing, and we would populate those retail and restaurant spaces, and then we would go to the next block. And then we would go to the next block. 3CDC still pretty much has that block-by-block strategy. They just now have the capacity developed over 10 years to manage more blocks at a time. But it is really saying, what is the most important part of our town? Where are we building a new park? Where are people going? Where do we already have the energy? And what are the missing pieces right there? And if we fill that in, and then we go here, and then we go here, and then we go here, and just creating momentum progressively. And I think what happens in a lot of cases, and certainly it happened in Over the Rhine before we started to be strategic, somebody would fix a building here, and then they would fix a building here, and then they would fix a building over here, and then they would fix a building over here. And those buildings were really great, but they were not aggregated. So there was no sense of momentum. There was no sense of focused progress. There were 3 or 4 great buildings, but then there was a lot of missing stuff in between. Yes?
I have another question for you. We're a very small community,
Yes, sir.
and, we have a very limited downtown. Downtown specifically is what we're talking about tonight. We spent $95,000 in the last year or so to hire a group to go out and to give us an analysis of our riverfront, which turned out included our downtown. It started as a riverfront development issue, I know because I sat on this board when we funded it. And it went from there to downtown. We identified and targeted a specific area that we want to highlight and do first. We're calling it the Civic Park. So when you rode around with Pat Kreider and with Tony and with Brian Messmore, did they share that vision? Okay. Having them have shared that vision with you. And so most of us up here, I know I speak for myself 100%, I think for Paul too, and probably Mr. Rybold, but we're focused on the master plan that this company gave us. We're taking one segment of it. So we're taking your big plan like you guys did, and we're taking one piece of it and building on that at one at a time. And when that piece is done, we were going to look at some other areas of the master plan. So the Civic Park is critical to us, that we do it right, but that it become a bit of a game changer. And we have been viciously, in some ways, and diligently in the other ways, trying to acquire property around it, and we've done it at great expense to the city. We've already got, in our opinion, a half a boxcar full of cash developed on this Civic Park in many ways, all right? We're not done, and we're going to spend a lot more money on this Civic Park. So my question to you, if you want to get my attention, and I would suspect some other members of this council, is how can you help us? Do you have any ideas to share with us on our Civic Park? Because that's where our focus is right now, and I hope it remains there. Not to not look at other things, but I think our Civic Park is critical that we go forward with it. We are, and there's guys in the audience that have been involved in this, we've been on this for almost 2 years, the Civic Park, and we're just now getting to where, and we've actually hired a company. Did they share the company that we hired out of Ohio?
MKSK?
Yes.
MSA?
Well, that's, they're one of 4 components.
Yeah.
So,
Kolar?
yeah, so they're formulating some ideas for us and some planning. We're planning some trips to go out with them. So I'd be interested to know what was shared with you on our Civic Park and what input you had for us.
I think everybody I spoke to shared your vision of the importance of the Civic Park. So my question is, what comes after the park?
Well, there's several things we have some other things on the drawing board. Mr. Messmore can tell you, we're looking at some housing things and some other developments.
Well,
But I'm just saying, there are other things we can talk about. But right now, I don't know why I would be interested in jumping too far away from the civic park.
Because when that park opens,
Yeah.
you already want the next phase of your momentum
I
to be
get
in
that.
place.
I get that. I understand
I
that.
don't mean to interrupt, but after 15 years of being on this redevelopment or whatever, and watching the money that the city of Lawrenceburg has spent, we have spent, not no half boxcar, we've spent 3 boxcars full of money. We have acquired property, and we've done nothing with it. We've been in lawsuits over it. We need, and I really think this, we need some guidance and some help from professional people to put that puzzle together. We've got property all over here that we want to do something with. And
I thought we had somebody
I
that
did
was
too.
going to tell us.
I did too.
who's that?
I thought, Strong,
Yes.
Strong.
That's the park. That's one piece of our puzzle, guys. That's just one
It's a pretty
piece.
big piece.
It's a big piece. But you know what? Every piece we've bought in the last 15 years is a pretty big piece.
My question
But
to
we need
you,
to get
were
it
you
together.
invited to Lawrenceburg by
Yes.
someone?
I was.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I may just interject, and Kathleen, thanks for coming down, riding around, and coming back.
Absolutely.
First of all, you had a lot of excitement and energy, and we kind of fed off that, and I'm glad you came back and shared that with the board. But I think what we need to decide as a board is, do we want to entertain the opportunity to maybe engage in a little bit of strategic planning? And I think that's going to take a conversation between us.
Right, I think we need to have like a work session.
And, we can lay out what we already have and kind of gain some agreement on that. We have some major block initiatives, I think, that kind of fit the conversation. But, I think that's a conversation we got to have, and then we'd have to investigate what it's worth to us. And maybe if we have a little bit better picture of that, maybe we can, re-engage a little bit and see if there's a relationship that we can build.
Well, I would like to also add, if I've come off as not thank you enough, or welcoming enough, I hope I haven't, but you went right to a target with us, and I just wanted to address it. But I thank you very much for coming in tonight, too, and if anything you can do to help Lawrenceburg, I'm on board with that. I just need to know what the parameters are on it.
Well,
And I would like to know what the parameters are too, but I'm going to go back to where I began, which is, it's not for me to set the parameters, sir. It's for you to set them.
I agree.
And then for us to say, yes, we can help with that. Maybe that piece would be better given to Kolar. You
Yeah,
have good
and
advice.
I understand you
But
came
it's
in-
not for us to set the
You're
parameters.
presenting your credentials. I get all of
Yeah.
that. I get that. But, we are right on the precipice of starting the civic park decisions that we're going to make. So if you had any input that you would like to share with us on that, now's a great time for that.
I would have to do some work, because I would not wish to give you input that was not well-informed. That's just,
Mr. Clerk.
I would do you a disservice.
That's what we've missed in the last 15, 20 years, guys. That's my feeling of this.
That's well taken, but that's not where we are right now.
Wait a minute, Owen, Mike, would you have something?
Yeah, just a comment for the board. I've been here maybe too long, and there again, the major problem we have downtown, it's chicken and the egg. Which comes first? It's, you have to have enough residential and foot traffic for business to thrive. You have to have the business there, the amenities, to get the residential and the foot traffic. That's the one nut that over 35 years,
We've been fighting it forever.
we have not been able to figure that out. We've flip-flopped 180 degrees about 3 different times. And the one thing, that's our big problem now. How do we solve that? Maybe this board can figure it out. If not, maybe we get some professional help to help us with that.
So we've
But-
already made a pretty good step.
And we have, just as she mentioned, we've picked up some momentum, we've got some things going. We've got 2 members on the board that have recently moved downtown, which 15 years ago, neither one of them would have considered that. We are starting to pick it up, but we're still a long way from being there.
The way I look at it, it's like we have this batting order, guys, and our 9th batter's batting first, and our 1st batter's batting 6th, and our 4th batter's batting 2nd. We need to get things in a row and decide what we want to do, one step at a time. And what's that next best step to take?
Tony,
First
is
step,
these
yes.
buildings on the corner down there.
Absolutely, absolutely, but
And they're not even on the agenda tonight.
that's because it's not time for them to be on agenda.
Okay,
But
and
they
that's
will be-
one reason we're gonna have another year before this thing gets going.
We're moving as fast as we can on it.
There you are.
So, that's why you want to be ready for your next step. We can't
What
just
is
say,
the
we're going
next
to build
step?
this park and that's going to be it. That's all on our mind. We got to know what's going around that park. Well, have plans for it.
If Mr. Clark's comments are right,
Yes.
and one of the deficiencies that we've had a problem with over the years is foot traffic coming downtown to participate in the downtown, whatever we do. What if we had solutions to that?
Well, I think, building this will be a solution to that. That's going to bring people downtown.
What if
to
there
this new
were
park.
other solutions to bring people, more foot traffic?
There are.
Okay.
And that's part of our job, to help you find those. That's part of it. We do this every day. We look at all the things that are going on here and elsewhere. We pay attention to how to solve those problems.
Would you be willing to come back to a work session with us to talk? Okay.
Sure, I really do like Lawrenceburg. I think it's a terrific town.
Thank you.
You're
Olin, you have
35
something?
minutes from my office. It's not hard to come back for another session.
Don't go too far.
Olin Clausen, Utility Director for the city.
Am I done, gentlemen?
No, stay with
okay.
us. Please, stay with us.
I do want to point a couple things out that are taking place that I'm happy to report on. One of those things are with the Civic Park specifically, Utilities has been asked to come in and to provide some insight on what to do with utilities, not just for the park, but looking forward as well. So my comment is, there's not going to be any one silver bullet to revitalizing the downtown area. And what I mean by that is, as we start to do the park, we need to start thinking about other things like egress into the downtown area that makes a little more sense. I harp a lot about the one-way street here, and that it's a hindrance to the downtown area. And that's just my opinion, of course, but what I'm getting at
Great.
is, we need to start looking at
I agree with you, too.
at all of the things that support the downtown being built, i.e. the road development, the way those streets look as you drive in, and those kinds of things, because I've been involved in some pretty extensive master planning, and master planning looks way beyond just the project, and looks at the other potential things that might happen, and may not happen, but at least we're talking about how everything else fits in. When I talk about that, I'm talking about the roads, the utilities, the sewer lines, the water lines, and doing things ahead of time and planning ahead of time so that when we do build something, we don't go back and dig up a road to put the utilities back in, and things like that that just cost us 10 times more and don't make sense. And so my only ask is that we do some evaluation on some sort of a master plan, because to my knowledge, we don't have a master plan for the city. And that makes me a little frightened, because sometimes you wind up what we call in the utilities as a stranded asset. You got the asset there, but you don't have a way to make use of it because we didn't think that through. So that's my only comment, but I do think we're doing some things exceptionally well. Paul Jr. has invited me to come in, and as others have, to assist in the undergrounding or the work around the Civic Park area. So we're thinking about those things. I just encourage that we think a little more about those things.
Olin brought up
Thank you,
something.
Olin.
We don't, I don't want to, we are planners. Utility planning is a whole art and science unto itself, but you want to talk about rebuilding a retail district? One-way streets are deadly. Those are the kinds of things that we will absolutely look at. We look at facades. We look at traffic patterns. We look at clean and safe. We look at tenant-landlord relations. We look at all those things because our goal is to figure out how to get you to the finish line, and we know that your downtown is hard to get into, and it's hard to figure out how to get out of.
Hard to get out, too.
Yeah, it's hard to get out of. I mean, and I would tell you that if we were working with you, we would do some
It's
analysis
actually
on
harder
that.
to get out of than it is to get in.
And I made the wrong turn, and I really thought I was trapped in the casino forever and ever.
But you know, we need you to come back and tell us. They've had other companies sugarcoat.
Oh, I don't do that.
You need to come and say,
Why
guess
don't you
what?
have
This needs to change. This part of Lawrenceburg's got to do something, regardless of what we want to hear. That's what we need.
And
But
I'm-
she's not high at Palma.
Yeah, and I don't do that. I actually don't sugarcoat. The other thing I don't do, and you mentioned the report you had, I don't consider a report to be an outcome. Change is an outcome. I want outcomes, and the outcome I want is the change you want, and the change that will make this town successful. So I'm not going to come in, scoop up a lot of your money, deliver a pile of nicely printed paper, and go home again.
Thank you.
We just had that happen.
That's not the way we work.
Thank you for coming tonight.
My pleasure.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
Thank you. Okay, so we will move on to Christian Strong.
Back, Premier Energy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Christian. I skipped one.
Okay.
Premier Energy, Dale Weldon.
Thank you, Your Honor. And John Stenger and John Brenner are both here from Premier Energy and Sycamore Gas respectively. And gentlemen, if one of you...
John.
Just John's here? John, if you could help us out and take the podium, and I suppose correct me if I state any of these terms incorrectly, but John's here today to ask that we consider amending or allowing them to amend their agreement simply to add Sycamore Gas as the proposed owner of the building rather than Premier Energy. All the other terms would remain exactly the same.
I believe that's Sycamore Properties.
Sycamore
Yeah,
Properties.
and actually, I think I can make it simpler than that.
Good.
What we would like to do is, what it says right now is that if I move my company out, that I would allow you to put a lien on the property. Well, the way that we ended up doing things, I don't own the property in Premier's name. It's owned in a different manner. So what I was going to ask...
Also, John, that's based on 3 years of,
Yeah,
yeah,
based on 3
sliding
years.
scale.
Right. So what I was going to ask, if there was some way that maybe we could change the language so that it said something about Premier's assets or something to that effect, instead of having it state that. Because to be honest, right now, the bank has rights to the assets of Premier anyway for whatever loans I have.
Mr.
But-
Chairman, could you help us with why you're doing this, or who's going to take over what?
Who's owning the property?
Yeah, just give us a little background as to why you're changing it.
Yeah, well, what ended up happening, we were going to, when we moved in, Sycamore Gas or the owners, he has a real estate company called Richwood Properties.
Okay,
Richwood Properties was going to own half of the building, and Premier was going to own half of the building.
right,
Well, we found out by code, we had to put this $125,000 wall down the middle of the building in order to legally split it. So John Browner and I sat down together and said, we don't really want to spend that money separating the building. So I ended up signing a lease agreement with him. But the intent, as I understand, of what Brian and the mayor and I talked about originally, and this commission, was we wanted to bring the jobs that Premier had to the city, and we want to have those 15 jobs that we were going to add locally here for the next 3 years.
at a higher rate.
That's what we pay
Right.
normally, yes.
But we were going to maintain that rate.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay.
we're a union contractor,
Right.
and by the union, that's the rate that we would pay. So the reason this all came up is I called Brian up and said, hey, I don't think I can legally live up to this agreement because it says if I move out, I'm gonna allow you to put a lien on the property. Well, I don't own the property personally, so I can't really do that.
All right.
So I was just trying to give the city some rights to things if for some reason I moved out.
Okay, so Dale, you've looked at this. What do you recommend?
Absolutely, thank you, Your Honor. What I would ask that the commission consider tonight is just permission for me to sit down with John and John and take a look at how we can modify this agreement so that we still have a security interest that will protect the money that we invest. Again, those same terms, those 3 years. The terms would stay the same, we would just look for another way to secure that money. And then I would bring the agreement back to you for final approval. So between the June meeting and the July meeting, I would meet with these guys. We would look at some options to substitute that security interest away from the building, and then I'd bring another agreement to you for approval.
Okay. Do we need a motion for that?
Yes, please, Your Honor.
Would somebody like to make the motion for that, if you agree?
Could you state the motion for us so we know what, a little more specifically?
Yes, sir. The motion would be for permission for legal counsel to meet with Premier and Sycamore to renegotiate only the secured interest portion of the funding agreement.
I'd make such a motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Dennis. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you. Thank you, Jim.
Dale, get a hold of him. You guys can work it out.
All right, thank you very much. And if I may, Your Honor, I'd like to just give you a quick update on where we are.
Good,
Great.
sure.
Okay. Actually, Sycamore moved in on Saturday. So Sycamore Gas is no longer in Greendale. It's now at 370 Industrial Drive, Suite 200.
Did they bring everything down?
We did, yes.
Excellent.
Yeah, we moved everything, and I'm sure you'll find out soon enough, Kelsey Chevrolet bought that property, and they're going to put their used car lot there.
Some inventory there.
And if you drive past, they've already torn some stuff down, and
Wow.
they're moving pretty quickly. Premier Energy we are scheduled to move on Thursday and Friday of this week, and we have until the end of June, basically, to move out of our current location in Ohio.
So your employees will be coming to work here, the ones that need to?
Yes,
And they'll eat in all of our restaurants exclusively?
that's what I'm hoping.
And our $12 hot dogs?
Okay.
Yeah, we need to work on that foot traffic, though, getting across the creek somehow. But no, by the end of the month, and also I have some things we're working on with Mike, with Mr. Clark, and we are working on paving the lot per plan and all of those sort of things. And we hope to have that finished by the end of June, but we had to get out of Sycamore's building because Kelsey had hoped to have a Memorial Day sale, but we didn't
Okay.
quite get out in time.
Would you remind me, not including the 15 employees you're going to hire on, maybe, how many employees are you bringing?
Well, there's Premier employees. Last year, we were at about 160 peak.
Yeah.
And then there's another 6 or 7 at Sycamore
Okay.
as part of that.
Great.
So
We're going to see trucks down there and bodies down there and everything else now.
we sure hope so. And the other thing I want to get started again is we hope to get a training program set up with Ivy Tech.
Good.
And that's kind of slowed down, unfortunately, but I need to get with Mr. Graver and get that resurrected.
Okay, that's great.
Now we're right across the street from them, so it ought to work a lot better.
All righty.
Thank you very much.
Right, thank you.
Thanks, John.
Okay, up next, Mr. Strong.
First off, if she could hook me up with the guy on Pontiac, is it?
Pontiac too.
You hook me up with him? let them work with me for a while. I'll bring Pontiac down here, and I'll do it myself. I'm serious. If you've never had Pontiac barbecue,
Steal their concept.
oh, I could team up with them, trust me. Trust me. You'd be
Christian,
there.
as long as it's not a $12.50 hot
If
dog,
you've never
I'm
had
okay.
Pontiac barbecue, it's by the same owners as Senate. It's right across the street up there in OTR. It's crazy good. It is. It's legit. I mean, it's like good old school barbecue, so, yeah, give me those numbers. I'll just-
Redevelopment road trip.
And then, but anyway, yeah. So, hopefully our first 6 months, has helped and lived up to the hype, and got a lot of traffic down here, for us down there. I mean, it's been good for us. You know, summer coming up and all the things that we got going on, you know, so hopefully it's, you know, a step in the direction that she's talking about. And, you know, we're getting a lot of traffic down here and things like that. So hopefully, our little pizzeria helped out with that. What I'm here for today is I finally, figured out a way to put a walk-in in that store, which I wish I had done during the opening, but I didn't really know where to do it or what to do. And I was trying to save a little bit of money and fix the equipment I had, but the equipment that was, the big piece that was in there was just starting to cost too much money to keep running. And, it was kind of not really user-friendly for what we needed. And we really desperately needed somewhere to, put the beer, to be honest with you. So what we did was put a 10x8 walk-in in, and new make table, designed an entire new line, and it's worked out perfect. So what I'm here is request help with the walk-in. The walk-in itself was $11,202. I already took care of all the everything else, the AC and the electric and all that, made the total come up to $16,341, which I'm not concerned with that. The walk-in itself is the only thing I'm here for today. And it's kind of nice to open the door and see all the kegs. It's actually sitting in the walk-in, as opposed to lined up along the wall. So,
Board have any questions, or?
Well,
I don't have any questions, but I do know that you've been here once and you've got a pretty good chunk of money.
yep, actually I got like 40,
Actually,
45% of
you're
what I
doing
spent.
real well as far as the business goes.
Yeah, it's going pretty well, yep.
I really don't see any reason why this board needs to advance him any more money. I just think that he's doing well. Everything I've heard is he's doing well. And our job was to get you here and give you money and get you in the building. I kind of think our responsibility is done. That's my opinion.
Okay.
what does our chairman think?
I sort of agree with Mr. Seymour. I mean, our job was to get you here, help you out, and I don't want to set a precedence where every business in Lawrenceburg is going to come back and say, hey, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do this.
Well, no, the only reason I did is because I saw people coming up with new ideas, and, you know, Bob was opening that little patio section and this and then that, and I was like, well, okay. And
No.
this is something I would have done in the beginning, had I realized it was, you know, the equipment in there was a waste of time. I mean, I spent $1,900 to repair it, and then it wasn't worth it.
The reason doing Bobo's was we were getting an old building that's ready to fall down,
Right.
tore down, and we were improving the property and everything, so, and that's Bobo's one time.
Well, I'm not concerned. Like I said,
Well,
I don't know
not
what to do.
only that, Christian, just to make you aware that recently this commission has decided to go a different direction with grants from businesses. And we brought Pat Kreider from Main Street, and she's been involved, and for new businesses, pretty much exclusively, since that's how we voted it, we're going to go that direction. And I know you wouldn't qualify that way under a new business, but I think our efforts really have to be for new businesses for the rest of this year and
That
for
would
the
have been fine
future.
when I submitted the request. They could have just told me that. I would have been totally fine with that.
I was not aware that you were doing this
Oh,
tonight.
okay, well, somewhere along the line.
Does anybody up here know about it before this meeting?
A month and a half ago. Yeah, I wouldn't have wasted your time. I mean, you know, to be honest with you, but the way I'm looking at
Well,
you and
the
everything.
thing is with that, Mr. Strong, is you asked Mr. Mesmore about it, and he can't tell you, yes, they'll do it, or no, they won't. He just says, throw it in front of them and see how they'll
It's his
react.
job to
So
present it to us.
that's why,
And I'm not disputing that, I'm not arguing that point. I mean, I would, like I said, this would have been something I would have done in the beginning, had we realized repairing that equipment and all that was a waste of time and money. But, you know, with that said, I hope that the thousands and thousands of people that are coming down here now strictly for us, as opposed to what was going on before, you know, kind of puts a little point in our favor also. I mean, because we are drawing, and I told you the day we sat here 8 months ago, if I put my sign up, I would draw a crowd, no matter where I'm at. And I think we've lived up to that hype.
Yeah, you have, and that's why how much did we grant you in the beginning? We give you
45.
two of them.
The total is 72 and change with,
I think 63 total, something like that.
it's 72,000 plus change with the ventilation systems. That was an additional 23. It was 49 plus that.
I think is a great partnership there.
No, I'm not
Started-
disputing that. I'm not disputing that. That's the only reason I brought it back.
Mr. Chairman, just because I was able to meet with Mr. Messmore in preparation for the meeting tonight, just some observations that I had. First of all, I think it goes without saying that everyone's a huge fan, Christian, of you.
Oh, yeah.
And everything you've been doing. My interpretation, for whatever it's worth, is just that this redevelopment commission has shifted gears, like Mr. Hutchins said, in a way to invest really all around you. I think that when you look at the bikes, when you look at the parklets, when you look at the civic park
Right.
that we're building, really, in a way, that's to support you and your business.
Oh, I agree.
And that's kind of just a philosophy, and I don't want to speak for you guys, but that's just my observation. So when you see that, just know that when we have those kind of projects, we're really thinking about you and your success.
Oh,
and
no, I agree.
We're investing in that just in a different way.
No, I agree. And, you know, like my attempt to get the building next to me so I could
I know.
finally put an ice cream parlor down here, which every day that I walk past there and see a coming soon sign in the middle of summer when I could actually already be doing that, it kills me because that would be something else that would really, really go over well down here. You know, things like that. So, no, it's totally fine. I just, you know, thought we'd.
Did you happen to talk to your building owner about maybe anything, any adjustment with him or anything?
I tried. I even offered more rent in 3 months in advance. That didn't work, but that's okay though. Like I said, start popping up some.
Well, I
stuff.
want to tell you, I personally, my wife and I eat there at your place a lot.
Oh, no, I appreciate it.
And
Love it.
I'm tickled to death that you're here. We love your food.
Bobby'd say too much.
You know what, Christian, the
Thank you.
the bad thing about this is being in a small town is, like you say, we've become friends.
Yeah.
You know, we come down here and spend a lot of money, and then when you look on this thing, it's like, it's almost like, oh, God, you know, I understand him setting a precedence and somebody else coming up. I mean, it just kills us to,
No,
you know.
it's not a problem. Like I said, give me a year, I'll do something else down here. Like I told you, I'm gonna do a spin-off somewhere across the street, something else, because it needs it.
And we'd be willing to help you on that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'd much rather my name be on a sign across the street than somebody else to draw that in, you know, and that's what we're working on right now. I mean, my first order of business right now, though, is moving my Newport store, but that's gonna happen at the end of the year, and then we're gonna start working on something, so.
Thank you.
No worries.
Look forward to working with you on your new business.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Christian.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Night Out Transportation.
We just table that, is that what we did?
There's nothing. No vote on it.
All right, it's not a dead issue then.
It's dead, there's no vote taken.
For what, for Christian?
I mean, if you want to make a formal motion, you can, just for the record.
I mean, if you want to make a motion not to do it, that's fine, but we don't have
You
to.
don't have to then.
All right, if we don't have to, we won't.
Okay. Well,
My name is Melvin Kramer. I am owner and operator of Night Out Transportation, which is considered taxi service. If you got a minute, I'll just go ahead and read what I got written down. This is not in the packets that I gave you. Night Out Transportation has been in business for over 12 years in this area. Started a business with my own money and continue to be working owner. We have served the public, and as other companies have come and gone, rules for cab companies changed. I've continually worked to comply with the rules and regulations of each town as are set up. I believe at this time I'm the only company with proper permit, or such as proper store front in Lawrenceburg. I've been here since 2012. Worked tirelessly to provide the area with quality service, and I believe the company has helped to keep impaired drivers off the road. Come here to ask today for the portion that is in your packet. Purchase a couple new vans, update some equipment for it, and office equipment. In return, I'll provide the city with door space or magnet space signage usage on the vehicle, with local events / new businesses that are needed, and also provide on each vehicle recognition to the city for behalf of the business.
Okay. Board have any questions? I mean, I don't know if we voted to or not to, didn't we vote to not buy any more vehicles anywhere after the last catastrophe? So,
I would have to say, Mr. Chairman, you were right on that one, but,
What about anything donated from the city possibly or anything like that? The reason I'm doing this is I've done all this with my own money, and the vehicles that I have, it's got a lot of miles, a lot of beating on them. I've picked up a lot of people, and if I go out, I keep putting money into used vehicles. If I go out and buy 3 brand new vehicles, or even myself, that's a big chunk of money out each month. That's all I'm doing is asking the city for some kind of help,
no.
some kind of relief.
This is the Redevelopment Commission. I'll be very blunt with you, Mel. I know you, Mel. If we would, first of all, we're not buying any vehicles anymore.
Right.
We went down that road and it didn't turn out very well.
Sure.
Second of all, if we're redevelopment, and if we grant you money to buy vehicles, there's 2 other cab companies here in Lawrenceburg? We're gonna have them knocking on our door. We're not in the business of just buying vehicles for the companies. I'm sorry. I mean, if we do, everybody will be here. I'll be here. I need a new service truck bad. You guys wanna buy me one?
No.
And I'll put all your names on it.
Definitely.
And that's exactly what's gonna happen, Mel. So we just can't be put in that position to do that.
Well, I was told to come here and do that, so that's the only reason I did
Well,
it.
that's
So
the
who do I-
that's the same thing Mr. Mesmore can't say, they won't.
I haven't spoke with him, but somebody else told me. So who do I, or is there anybody that would be able to help me out through the city, possibly?
I don't,
Not that I'm aware.
huh?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm gonna say, I don't have any idea who it would be, Mel.
Okay, it's no problem.
Sorry.
Sorry, very good, I appreciate you guys' time.
All right.
Thank you.
Up next, Mr. Clark.
Yes, thank you. We had advertised for the demolition of 305 West Center Street. We were in the process of purchasing that.
Mike, I'm having trouble hearing you.
We were in the process of purchasing 305 West Center Street,
Right.
and that sale fell through. We received quotes today to do that. Since we do not own that property or not going to own it in the next couple of weeks, I would recommend that this board reject all bids to do that. If you do make that motion, I've got the quotes here unopened. I will provide a sign-out sheet and take the quotes back to the clerk treasurer's office and allow the contractors to come in and sign their unopened quote out. It is a possibility in the future that we will receive that property through condemnation. If that happens, then I can go ahead and re-advertise again to have it demoed, and we won't be shopping all the contractors.
Mike, can you share, or anyone in the room, our attorneys, share what happened to the deal?
Yes, sir, and if it pleases the commission, we worked really hard to try to make something work for this piece of property and for the property owner. And without sharing too much information, there ended up being multiple owners, that wasn't disclosed at first, and then there ended up being a lot of liens on the property. which just made it not cost advantageous. The only reason that, and I appreciate the commission allowing me to pursue this, the only reason that I thought this would be beneficial is that it would have been cheaper if it would have worked out, and would have also been a benefit to the property owner, but it just can't work. The numbers wouldn't add up. It would have benefited the city, exactly. You know, it's at the end of the day, it turned out to be a waste of time, but I think it was worth it. This is also part of a larger scope, which is, I think, redevelopment related, which is the unsafe building process and the building department process, and really the process of identifying property that could be rehabbed or needs to be rehabbed or has flaws. That's a process that we've been working really hard on. This was one of the projects. There are some other properties where we've explored creative ways to revitalize these buildings, or tear them down if they need to be torn down, to kind of beautify and improve the downtown. So we'll continue to do that. Just with this piece of property, it fell through. I guess, Mike, if it's okay, it's semantics, but would it be possible? Would it be better if the vote today was for us to just withdraw our invitation to bid, and we can reject
It's
the bid?
that under the rights of the city and the redevelopment, they do have that right to reject all. I couldn't do that myself. I had to bring it to this board. So honestly, if I could just get a vote to reject all, then I can return them and explain to each bidder what took place, and let them know that hopefully in the near future, we will re-advertise, and I'll make sure I personally notify each one of them about it.
So in layman terms, we're going to condemn it and then tear it down.
Well, right now, we're not
We
worried.
don't know.
Bob, right now, we're not worried about that. We just want to reject these bids to tear it down. So if I
Mr.
get a
Chairman,
motion,
I would make a motion that we reject the bids at this time.
I have a motion by Dennis, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
A second by Paul, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion passed, reject all bids for the demolition. Any other new business? All right. Move on to old business, levee breaker patio expansion update. Is there somebody here for that?
See anybody here for
Mike
that?
Reza.
Oh, then we'll move right on past that. Brian, downtown Lawrenceburg Small Business Action Grant.
Are you ready, Pat?
I told Pat, Mr. Messmore, if it pleases the director, and if it pleases Mr. Abbott, I told Pat that I would, and Bob, can I borrow yours? That I would go through this for her. Pat and I had an opportunity to meet on Thursday, go through the parameters of the downtown Lawrenceburg Small Business Action Grant, and what you have before you is a form. We'll seal Aaron since he's courting some old ladies around tonight. Originally, I had to be educated by Pat because I thought this was part of the Jenny Fowler presentation, which is kind of the incubator Shark Tank presentation. If you recall her presenting, that project is still going to be presented to us at some point, but not yet. I think it's maybe a year out. But this project is ready to go, and we've already voted on the seed money and agreed on some of the terms. So Pat was good enough to talk to me Friday, write this up. These are the terms that I understand the board or the commission to want. So we'll kind of go through these, and then we can vote to enter this into the minutes, and this would be the formal start of this project. The parameters are that the grants would be $7,500 one-to-one matching grants, and the grant money would be in the form of a reimbursement. And so the money that comes from the city or from the Lawrenceburg Redevelopment Commission would come after the completion of the project and repay expenses that can be shown to be made. So the proprietor of the business would show that they have invested at least $15,000 into the project themselves. The $7,500 that we would provide as part of this matching fund couldn't be used for rent or utilities, but they could use their half of the $7,500 for those items. And so what we would do as a practical matter is when we're ready, or when someone thinks that they qualify and they're ready to be considered for the $7,500, they would meet with Mrs. Kreider in Lawrenceburg Main Street, who's administering this program. They would show to her and prove to her through documentation that the financial threshold has been met. If that is so determined to be satisfactory, then the $7,500 would be paid to them as a one-half reimbursement or payback for the expenses they've already invested. These funds are limited only to new businesses and new businesses to Lawrenceburg. So it's got to be a brand-new business, and it's got to be a brand-new business to Lawrenceburg. It's a 2-year lease or ownership of the business location. Timeline for opening not to exceed 6 months. Ability to make private investment equal to amount of grant. Compliance to all licensing requirements, city permits, and building codes. We usually base that on certificate of occupancy is the easiest way to show that they've satisfied all of their requirements with planning, zoning, and building. Lawrenceburg Main Street report on a regular basis. The Redevelopment Commission, as to the grants that have been approved and applications that have been rejected, and also progress. And again, we have voted at one point to see this with $30,000. And so what I would ask for is just some input. If any of these things should be changed, we can do that, and then we'll end up with a finalized proposal that Pat can get started on right away. The only other thing is, if you remember, Janice with the sweet shop came and presented to us, and we told her that, you know, her project was probably one that would be kind of an archetype for this kind of project. Once this is approved, we'll call her, because we kind of told her that we would, and let her know that she can contact Pat. And then, you know, any businesses that any of you guys see that might qualify, send Pat's way, and she'll do the same thing.
Okay, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
In our meetings, I think rent was going to be qualified as part of their expenditures. Was that, did I get that wrong, Pat?
They have to pay for it. We're not going to pay for it. So we're not going to pay for
Right.
rent or utilities.
The rent payments were part of the 15,000 that they could come up with.
But
Right.
herein lies the issue. If I can't reimburse until the whole 15,000 is expended, that means I can't reimburse their 7,500 until if it's going towards rent. You know, that's kind of the glitch there. You know, maybe we say a portion of the rent, like maybe the deposit in the first month or something like that, but that's going to be the glitch.
Play out a problem for us on it,
Yeah,
Pat.
well, for instance, okay, so somebody rents this place, okay, and they're going to use their rent and utilities as their match, their 7,500. Okay, if it's, what, $700 a month, how long is that going to take for them to have expended their 7,500? Of course, utilities add into that, but do you see what I'm saying? That reimbursement is going to take place over a long period of time if they try to add their whole entire rent for a year in there.
But I'm sorry, Pat, but isn't the idea, in your understanding and in the commission's understanding, that the $7,500 really is supposed to be a capital investment in equipment and improvements, remodeling? That's important for a couple of reasons. One, so that we don't worry about what Pat just described, and so that we have some kind of security interest if they, you know, bail after a couple of months. If they hadn't bought any equipment, then we don't have anything to hook onto.
Well, I think it was pretty clear to me that pretty much the city's portion, what the city was willing to invest, was more capital-type expenditures. But there was a lot of kind of gray area on what would be allowed as their their match. We were pretty gray on that.
And that's because of the history of other programs that we've had in the
Sure.
past, so.
Yeah.
The fix would just be, could be, all 15 has to be capital and remodels. No, it can't, none of it can be salaries, rent, or utilities.
Well, salaries, I think we absolutely excluded from it.
Salaries,
Totally.
insurance, rent,
Yes.
utilities, we would exclude.
So you want to say
Bonuses or
operating,
whatever, none of that.
day-to-day operating expenses,
Yeah.
maybe?
Right, okay.
How about deposits,
Nope.
you know?
Well, deposits they can end up getting back, so
Yeah.
why would
That's
we-
part of the rent thing anyway, so.
So we'll just exclude operating expenses from their match.
So equipment, inventory, and physical remodeling would be
You're okay
really
with
the
inventory?
only things.
You're okay with inventory?
Yeah, because we can attach,
Okay.
Not if they sell it.
not if they sell it, or it melts.
Well, that inventory could, that could be one of those things we kind of push them.
Mike has.
Mike, do you have something to add to this?
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add, one thing you may want to consider is these are old buildings. A lot of them, they have to have an architect or a structural engineer in. I guess my first thought, would those expenses be covered under this?
Mike, I don't see a lot of people that
Yes.
are coming into town, though, with this type of investment that are going to be, at $7,500 times 2. I don't see anybody buying a building that would call for a specific, no, because I bought a couple in town. And I think we're looking at encouraging business here. So Carl, as long as Carl's on board and checks everything out,
There again, on my end, I see it all the time where I can issue a zoning certificate, but they get to Carl and he's stuck. It's, no, this building has to be brought up to code.
Well, for one example, right now, there's a guy here on Walnut Street, he wants to put a new roof on. He has to get an architectural engineer to okay it, and that's just more expense for a business trying to start up. So yes, that would be covered under this.
Right, and that was my only question, because those are things I hear
That's what we need to help
daily
these
from
people with.
people that come into town.
And that's legitimate. That's kind of an opening cost. So more opening costs as opposed to operating expenses?
Mr. Clausen, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, two things. Let's not be too hasty on the utilities piece. I've had a customer, or I've had someone who's buying a building here on Walnut who is thinking about putting in an elevator. And that
Yeah, that'd be fine, and as far as installing utilities would be covered under this, but not paying their utility bill.
I was just joking about the utilities, but I was curious about the elevator piece. Because I think it's
No, every hair on your head was sticking straight up.
And, with all due respect to an elevator, unless it's a second floor commercial location, we're not going to probably be doing an elevator because
We just did one.
this is just commercial, commercially oriented.
Mel, you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we've already set a precedent, gentlemen, with inventory, and I personally don't think that we ought to be buying somebody's alcohol for a bar. I think capital expenses are great, improvements to the building, which is a capital expense, are great, remodeling, great, but I don't think if you're going to go into business, you should need help with an inventory.
I don't think we're going to do inventory.
I think that, I think what we want to divide here is put some clarity here as to what
I'm good
can
with that.
count as their match.
Right.
Maybe inventory can count as their match, but that's certainly not something that the city.
Well, Pat, that's the same thing then.
I think that we want to keep it uniform, so,
Like,
and that
keep
makes it easier.
Inventory out of the equation.
So here's what I've written down, you guys just tell me if it should be on or off. Salaries, I think off, right? We're not paying for that, so that wouldn't be part of the match or what we do. Rent and utilities, no. Insurance and taxes, no. Inventory,
No.
no. Remodeling, which includes engineering costs and labor and materials, yes. And then equipment, yes. So that really would just be, that would be it. Anything else we would want to cover?
Well, the whole concept here was to help them. So that's what we're doing here, right?
That's a huge help. That's
Okay.
some good stuff. So remodeling, materials, engineering and labor, and equipment.
Okay, and that's what we're looking at for total project funding, their portion and our portion.
Is that okay with you, with the commission and with you, Pat? Is that okay?
It really is whatever the commission wants. I feel like we're just here to administer it and administer it according to your wishes.
So you're going to write that up and bring the final draft back to us?
I think we could go ahead and do it tonight. I don't think we need to, delay it. So the terms that I would ask, Your Honor, may I just read a motion and then?
Go for it.
So what I would ask for tonight is a motion to accept the parameters for the Downtown Lawrenceburg Small Business Action Grant that will be funded by an initial investment from the Lawrenceburg Redevelopment Commission of $30,000 that will be administered by the Lawrenceburg Main Street Association at the discretion of the Main Street Association according to the parameters that we've laid out today. Those parameters are that it is a $15,000 matching grant one-to-one where the city of, the Lawrenceburg Redevelopment Commission would provide $7,500, one half of that up to $15,000 to be paid at the end of the remodeling and the build-out upon a showing of a certificate of occupancy from the city of Lawrenceburg. The $15,000 must be proven through documentation satisfactory to Lawrenceburg Main Street that the money was spent on the cost of remodeling to include labor, materials, and engineering and equipment, and that the small business commits to operate for at least 2 years, and if not operating for 2 years, to repay the $7,500 to the fund for the Lawrenceburg Small Business Action Grant program, with that repayment secured by anything that was purchased as part of the original agreement. In that Lawrenceburg Main Street report on a regular basis to the Redevelopment Commission as to the grants approved, grants rejected, and the progress of the businesses overall.
That's the longest motion I've seen in 15 years. It had to come from the Lawrence.
I think our secretary would like a copy of that motion, please.
You write that down?
Will you just email that to me, please?
Yes.
I didn't get.
Your mom will remember shorthand.
Would anybody like to make that motion as read by our attorney?
So moved.
First by Paul,
I'm second moved.
second by Bob, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? I don't know.
I'm for it.
So is it an aye?
I'm an aye.
Okay. Unanimous.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Personally, I think it's a little,
Mr. Chairman,
it's okay.
we did have some last-minute old business that Mr. Clark would like to run past the board.
Okay, is this the Short Street?
Oh, I forgot about Short Street.
Well, I have, just, Mr. Chairman, when they're done, I have a couple old businesses.
Yep. We have the Short Street, I'm sorry, I forgot that one.
Oh, that's the alley, okay. So well, let's do the Short Street parking lot first and then,
Okay, this is the parking lot that's behind the Cardis Law office building. I think most of you are aware of the history of it. At some point in time, that property was transferred to the owner, to that owner, perhaps unintentional. And as I understand it, we own a portion of the lot, they own a portion of the lot. So it's not a good situation either way. The property owner has indicated that they would like to sell it to us. Back in 2015, I believe, the board decided not to buy that property back for $9,000, I believe the asking price was. So I think what we have to decide fundamentally is, you know, is that parking lot of value, does that add value to the downtown either today or into the future for the businesses, even probably for events and local residents? As it sits, it has some pretty serious fundamental flaws in terms of, you know, we can't get into the lot, we can't get to our 12 feet without going across theirs, and they can't back out of their parking spaces without running into ours.
That is correct.
put some picnic tables on our spots.
So
we did, to go back on that, it's not that we didn't offer to buy it, we offered $9,000. And he rejected that.
He rejected $9,000, okay. I'm staying corrected. So, in our little bit of research on this, we were not able to find appraisals. I don't know that anybody has any knowledge that there was, but we could not find any. So in the event that the board decides it's time that there's value in obtaining that property and making it whole, making it usable, I think we would probably have to do appraisals. in addition.
Mike, got something on this?
Yeah, just a little bit of information, and this time, maybe I'm going to tell you what I think you need to hear instead of what you want to hear. Right now, we're in good shape parking-wise downtown. You know, this was an unfortunate event that took place. We are picking up momentum. I can foresee in the very near future that we are going to have some parking problems in our downtown, and I can tell you parking problems are a good thing to have downtown, because I've been from one end to the other and in between. You know, every time we have an event, which we are holding more events downtown, we're going to need it. I know we even mentioned Walnut Street, possibly making that two-way again, or looking at that.
That'll take away parking.
Guys, the reason we changed that 100 years ago from two-way to one-way, parking was a big reason, because we took it to one-way, and we picked up a considerable number of new parking spaces by having angle parking on each side. So I just want you to be aware that I don't like the taste of it any more than you do, but in the very near future, I really believe that we're going to want that, regardless of what the amount is. That's not my area, but for us to go out and procure property and make the improvements to build new parking lots, which we're probably going to have to do anyway in the next 3 to 5 years. Then again, guys, that's a good problem, but I really suggest that you consider this, because in the long run, at the end of the day, I do believe we need that property.
So if the board has interest in buying this property, I'll need a motion for it to go out and be appraised, first of all.
No, we appraise everything. We haven't bought anything for a while.
Well, I have a couple of questions on appraisals. I understand why we would want to do this, but I remember 3 years ago when that came up, Mario brought it up at a council meeting. I was here. And you know what? The city was using that lot for a long period, maintaining it and using it. Am I wrong, Mr. Clark?
No, you are correct.
And all of a sudden, this particular attorney decided, he did some research and found out he owned that lot, except for a piece of it.
Well, he did find out that he owned it, and he was then, I think, informed by his insurance company, once he found that out, that was a liability to leave it open as a public parking area.
But the city at that time, Mike, at that time, the city said, can we work out some sort of insurance thing? He didn't want to hear anything about it. Okay, I'm remembering because I was here.
No, in fact, he offered to sell it back. We offered to sell him our, I don't know if it's 12 or 19 feet, whatever it is. We offered to sell that to him. Well, he didn't want that. He barricaded it off when we had Fall Fest that first year.
My only question is, Mr. Chairman, before we go through another appraisal, could Mr. Nismore contact him and see if he's genuinely interested in selling it? And if he is, does he have a ballpark number for what he's interested in?
Do you remember the ballpark number last time?
I've slept since then.
Paul, you have something?
I know Frank, I don't have any problem giving him a call. That's not a big deal.
Yeah, but we can't make an offer on the property.
I didn't ask him to make an offer, though.
Well, but we
Just
can't.
if he's interested in selling it to us, so should we go forward?
He wants to sell it.
He wants to sell it. He's contacted us.
Because he's moved, he doesn't live here anymore.
It's up to you guys.
Cardis.
How much?
4 or 5 years ago.
Was it 60?
It was somewhere in that area.
Why don't we just let
It'll
it
never
sit
appraise
for
for 60.
liability?
I bet it would.
Think so?
Parking lot with a set of steps and a wall like that.
That we built?
My problem is,
Yeah, we
he
built
didn't
it.
give anything for it, he didn't know he wanted it. If you don't want to pay taxes on it, why don't we send him a letter saying, we'll remove this burden from you, can you sign it over to us? You didn't even know you owned it.
We actually tried that, and that didn't work with him.
Well, if it don't work, we we don't need it, I don't care. Didn't they know he owned it?
That's true. No, he wasn't supposed to go with that property. I don't know how it happened.
Well, it's certainly not an imminent issue for us. We don't need it right now. I think, with respect to what Mike said, it certainly could be, but, you know, it's not costing us anything now. Let it sit.
It's up to the board. You can make the motion, go out for appraisals, or just...
I make a motion that we just let him accept the responsibility and the liability and let it set.
Okay, I don't need a motion for that.
Well, if there were a motion, I would second it. Yeah.
We don't even need a motion, really.
Okay, failure on that for no motion.
And then Mike
Next,
Clark
we got,
has an additional
Mr. Clark.
note of business.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. You received 2 sheets in front of you today. Long story short, the city is asking the Redevelopment Commission to quit claim the highlighted yellow parcel that is shown on the recorded Cook Place subdivision back to the city. And the reason we're asking this is that was part of the purchase/development agreement with Lawrenceburg Redevelopment and Kurt Rafferty. He purchased all that property for the Dollar General to be built there, and also a condition was to put a residential subdivision in. Part of the conditions for the residential subdivision was to connect to an existing alley that dead-ended and come out to Cook. That was the property. In that recorded subdivision plat, if you look at it closely, it says dedicated public right-of-way. And per this recorded subdivision, that was dedicated over to the city of Lawrenceburg. On that list, as a condition in the development agreement, was that that property be transferred over to us. About 3 months after this was recorded, he transferred it again by deed to the Lawrenceburg Redevelopment Commission. So we actually have 2 governmental entities that both have ownership rights to that same piece of property. So we did the job doubly good on that one.
Well, our budget,
It's not a parking lot, is it?
No, but the
our
issue
redevelopment
is,
budget's getting low. How much does the city want to pay us for it?
That's a good point.
good luck with that one. But the issue arose,
I like that.
we built the alley, which is now named Mabel Turner Alley. And we have additional property there that you'll see on the second sheet on the Cook Alley vacation plat that we were going to vacate, and the adjoining property owners would receive that. So the yellow is the titled property, the red is the area that we want to vacate, and the hashed mark is part of the property that the city and the redevelopment own that's included in the vacation. We don't need that property for an alley. It would be better served for the adjoining property owners, the residents, to own it. In fact, since we brought this up, 2 of the 3 are already talking about possibly building a garage partially on their existing lot, partially on this new property, so we
How do they
would,
access then?
from the alley.
From
So,
that yellow alley?
yes, so we would pick up some additional tax base. We held our public hearing at the last planning commission meeting. In doing so is when we found out that we have 2 city entities that have ownership in it. So if this board would agree to quit claim that property back to the city, then we'd go ahead in the first meeting in July and bring it in front of council for the vacation. So Do you guys have any questions or comments on this that I could answer?
I'll say that Mike's right, and this is something that I've worked on for redevelopment and for the city and planning and zoning, and Tom Blondell's working on it for planning and zoning now, and I've worked on it with the title company. It was basically just a weird chunk, it was a weird lot, and the idea of the project was to finish that alley out, because it ended there. So we got to finish the alley out, we've got to clean that parcel up and add on to the back of those 3 lots. The reason it looks the way it does is it overlaps 4 different ways, but it's just a matter of the way that the property was transferred back and forth. So redevelopment, quit claiming it to the city.
So this cleans it up?
It cleans it up, and we're just getting out of it. So that's the best way to handle it.
The only other comment I have is by land rights, since the subdivision was recorded first, more than likely, that would rule, but we can't determine that. It would take a judge to make that determination, and I see no reason to go to that time or expense.
We got enough lawyers working on it now.
I hear you.
But that was just one lawyer, Chairman.
We got the planning commission lawyer, and
I'm all
He wears all the hats.
So again, what I'm asking for tonight is for this board to vote to quit claim this back to the city to clean the whole thing up.
I would make the motion.
so what's the description on that property for the motion?
It is on, the legal description is on the subdivision plat. There again, I give you reduced size copies, but,
Without magnifiers.
yeah, and there again, it's just, we own it, the city owns it per the subdivision plat, but then again, you guys own it because you hold a deed that's actually in I think everyone here has a redevelopment property inventory.
I don't know, I'm just trying to find it.
I'll just call it, Chairman, if I may, I'll just call it the Cook Alley Vacation. Mike Clark, and then we'll have Mrs. Brookbank just add this to the minutes for
Okay.
reference.
So I need a motion to quit claim the Cook Alley vacation land
Mr. Chairman, I would make that motion to sell it to the city as per Mr. Clark's recommendation.
Quit claim it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I got a motion. I have a second.
I'll second that.
Second by Paul. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
Thank you very much.
We'll sell it. Okay, moving on. If there's no more old business.
Yep, I have one.
Tell
Okay.
it to Paul. Council.
Remember I told you beforehand, I have a couple?
Oh, no.
Tony, don't look at the clock, I have a couple.
I'm looking.
I would like a report from our attorney, if he could do it, on an update on the properties for the Civic Park that we are close to purchasing. How close are we to wrapping them up?
10 minutes. I'll do even better, Senior. I had the opportunity today to talk to Janie Scudder, the attorney in Indianapolis for the Union Hall, and also Jimmy Thomas's attorney. I met with the title company, and we have initiated the first steps toward scheduling the closings for all 3 of those properties. We've cleared off all of the tax liens for the Thomas property, and so we will not only have those bought, but we'll have them closed within the next 30 days.
Anything on the row houses?
Row houses are up to you guys. I know that we've had, again, you know, my mom's fiance owns those last 2 row houses. I know we've had them appraised twice. The outside, I think we've had the inside appraised once. Maybe Mr. Meshmore, correct me if I'm wrong. So we still got one more appraisal to do, so that we have 2 appraisals for each, or Mrs. Brookbank could correct me. And then we'll know how much they're worth. I know that there are some private individuals that are interested in purchasing them, and then we're interested in purchasing them. I think the question really is, and I was talking to Mr. Messmore about this today, do we want to buy them so that we can control kind of how that property threads in with Strand's vision? And then with the idea that we're going to sell them for what we paid for them, so I mean, we wouldn't hypothetically lose any money, but we would be able to control how the Strand development deals with that, especially
Plus, we have that 24-feet easement.
Right, since that was the impetus, the concept would be that we, you know, whatever private individuals are interested, we make sure they know that we're great partners and we're not going to hold them up, we're actually going to help them. But I just, that's gonna end up being really kind of the cornerstone for the whole project in terms of the private end of it. So it's up to you guys, but if you wanna buy it, I'd say buy it. If not, then, say you're not going to, so that they can sell it to somebody else.
I think we have to buy it to get that easement off the books.
Yeah, and that's correct.
And I think it's a component of the civic park as well.
So we are having it appraised. Did we not vote to have it appraised?
We have, they're just waiting on one
Two
more
of them, one
appraisal.
more? Okay.
Well, it's 4 total.
Hey, hold on, we buy that, and that building that's sitting there,
We sell it.
I know, but who in the hell is gonna want it, because there's gonna be no room for parking if we wanna put a restaurant in there.
There's gonna be a brand-new park right there. That thing will sell real
You have the
easy.
garage, Bob, right behind it. And the garage is free.
But we have to get that easement that goes with it. Because if not, that could hold up the whole park. All right.
Make a motion.
I don't want to say all that, but.
Well, I don't think we need to do anything tonight, other than just an update. Once
just
we get
wanted
the
an update.
appraisals back, then, Mr. Messmore will ask for a vote on whether or not to pay the average of those 2 appraisals. So, we should wait to see what it comes back at.
All right. Anything else, Dennis?
Well, I just want to thank our guest again from Cincinnati. It was very interesting.
And, yeah, and with that, Brian, don't forget to set up a work session, or Kelly. All right. All right, moving on, approval of claims once properly certified. Have a motion to pay the claims? Do we have any claims?
Yeah, we had one this time.
Okay. Have a motion to pay the claims?
Jeff Thomas.
Yeah, there's a appraisal
Our
claim.
appraiser.
I make the motion to
The
approve the
runoffs.
claim in full.
Second one that you guys wanted.
We have a motion.
Because he had 2. We already paid him for the first one. This was the second.
Would you two quiet down there? I got a motion on the floor to pay the claim.
He wanted to
You
know
gonna
about
do
the
the second?
claim. Before he voted.
Well, I wanted to know what the claim was for.
All I want is a second to pay it.
I have a question, I'd like to know why it's $1,200 and some dollars when we've only been paying at the most $300.
That's a good question.
It's commercial, that's why.
It's commercial.
It was appraised at commercial versus residential, and that is
And we've been paying $1,200 for commercial.
yeah,
You're wrong business.
it's a going rate.
You still not going to second it?
Get that guy down.
Just say second.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against?
Are you and I?
Aaron just called me, he's against.
We got deja vu here.
Passes it still, doesn't it? Motion passed 2-1. Sorry, Paul.
He said aye.
Comments from the audience? Oh, my goodness.
Uh-oh.
Come on, Tom. Let's get Tom over first.
Also, I wanted to say, Mr. Chairman, we're happy to have Mr. Rybold with us tonight. In our meeting.
We needed him big time.
And you.
Tom Schneider, I live on High Street. I'd like to know, after Dennis asked the question of where do you stand on purchase of the properties, why can't you go ahead and tell Mario, even though he's not here, to get the bids out for the tear down of those properties?
We could do that, that's a good point.
And the other question that I have is, it's my opinion that this board ought to be meeting twice a month, especially with the park starting, even if one would be a work session and one would be this portion, because at the work session, you can do motions and approve things. This project took a whole year. Whatever the reason, whether somebody didn't want it to happen or whatever, but we do not want, I'm talking about me as a taxpayer and someone who lives adjacent to the property, we do not want this to drag out. there are already people coming and asking about the property, the properties, the firehouse, the Union Hall. They're already asking about that. So we don't want this to drag out. So,
We're all behind that too. I mean, and we had a meeting with them. We want this park fast forward, and that's what they're doing. They're working hard on it. As the fact of having 2 meetings, we can do that anytime. We can call for a work session at any time. We might, once it starts, we might have 3 or 4 of them in a month.
The other reason is, for a work session, is because the way the architects work, they want public input. And that would give them the opportunity to come here and they would get this input. And people would know that you're having the meeting and it's for this input.
Tom, we're going to establish a board for that park.
I understand that.
And that board will serve most of that purpose, I would assume.
Well, I imagine Strand will have their own meetings here too. I mean, there'll be plenty of meetings on this park, but we don't want to slow nothing down. We're trying to speed it up, fast forward as much as we can. We've done that study on it. We know what the public wants in there, and just to see what we can get in there. And that's what they're working on right now.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that we're past that. We've already done the public input phase. I mean, we spent a whole summer on that. And, you know, I've heard commitment to try to get shovels in the ground as soon as Music on the River is over. It's important that, you might already know this, but it's important that the public know that Strand's already been on the ground a bunch of times. They've been here, they've been walking the site. So they're working, and we don't want delays either.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, just so the board's aware, this past week I got a call from 3rd and Main in Aurora, the restaurant owner, and he came to town and we had a small meeting, a group of guys, and he's interested in the row house as well and possibly the firehouse. So when we know more, I'll bring it to the board, but I wanted to make you aware of it. Okay?
We don't want to jump the gun on any of the property.
We
right
haven't,
now.
I'm just making you aware that we've had a couple of meetings.
All right. Any other?
Public comments closed. Oh, sorry.
One thing I'm a little concerned about, Center Street, we're going to go through a condemnation process, but nobody asked the obstacles, and I don't know if anybody does know the obstacles, but my comment is I knew there was a utility obstacle, money owed. I don't know how much the other ones are, or if there is any other ones, but I did know about the sister, and I thought that would come up. So my question to you guys is we had an offer out there, I believe, of $5,000. I think you all knew that there was a utility.
$540.
Okay. Do you have any idea, I mean, I've seen this go as high as $80,000 to get a house, tear it down, and put houses on it. So my question to you is what if the sister wanted $5,000 too? Would you have said no? What if there's another $200 lien on it? There might be $80,000 worth of liens, and you might be exactly right. Do these guys know what's on it?
No.
That's my point.
Sure.
You just voted on something, you don't even know what you voted down. What if you can get this property for 20 grand? And right now, guys, we've got, Mike, how many builders building homes in Lawrenceburg? 4?
I know, well, 4 counting you.
I think right now, you've got a chance to get a house that, hey, everybody in here agrees, if we're gonna condemn it, it needs tore down. Now, my question to you is, what are you willing to pay? Did we change our policies? What are we willing to pay to get the house tore down? How much is standing in our way? At least we could investigate that. Because in my opinion, if we can get into this house for a reasonable amount of money and have a lot sitting there that, by the way, You got a guy that guarantees he wants to put a house on it and live in it, and he's the one that's fixed the other 3 or 4 houses up on the street. Why ain't we at least asking, what would it take?
Sure.
Let's find out what it would take.
First of all, I figure, I mean, this is not something you want to discuss out in public, what is owed on the house. So I figured that's why it must be more than the appraised value of the house.
So, I don't care, but it should have been in y'all's packet.
Well, we don't have any information. That's why I asked our attorney for a report.
All I'm asking is I know you guys got the vote, but I would at least like the information passed along to you to where you could say yay or nay, is it worth it? We have paid pretty good money to tear houses down before, and by the way, guys, it's working. It's catching on all over town. Even when you build a new house, 3 doors down, somebody's working on an old one. So I'm not so sure how we can not at least look into this to see if it, okay, what's too much? That's you guys' decision, not mine. But it just sounded like you gave up on it, and you really don't even know what you gave up on.
Brian, how do you feel about pursuing it?
My understanding that it was more of because there were 2 owners, it was more of a legal issue than a money issue, but I could have been misunderstood. I could have misunderstood that. And then again, to Paul's point, it's up to how much money it's worth. It is working. I just got another call today on St. Clair, another lot there.
So did that lead you guys to the conclusion to go the other route through condemnation?
As we approached the meeting tonight, I thought we were just putting those on hold pending the outcome. But at some point
I'd at least like y'all to negotiate a little bit with her, or him, but I know there's a sister involved. I didn't ever think she would want to sit in the back and not get any money. I thought it was amazing that, you did a good job. I'm not saying that. But your job ain't over yet, because what I'm hoping is these guys come to a decision and say, well, we're willing to go this high for that property because we got some plans for it. We want something to happen on it. I think y'all understand what I'm saying. That's all I wanted to say. One other thing is, and this is for Brian, I didn't know whether we could get an update. I know they're planning on putting a tour together, and there's 2 things with that. I was hoping everybody that would be on the committee, have you notified them yet? Do we know?
I'm still waiting. Talked to Tony today. He is working with his subs to put together the scope of work and the fees, the percent fee schedules for that project. And I know they're doing some groundwork. I just was kind of waiting for them to get that initial part started. We don't have a contract, so to speak, yet. So I think our discussions have been that the Redevelopment Commission and the City Council would be the steering team throughout the project, and a couple citizens, I believe, are to be added to that. Mm-hmm. But I haven't got anything from them yet in terms of a contract and a scope of services, so.
Do you think that they need a contract to take us on that little tour?
Oh, no.
That's all I'm asking.
Yeah.
I'd like to get the guys involved. I think everybody wants to.
Yeah, what he's referring to is when we took a walk the other day, we talked about some of the referenced projects in the past. We talked about visiting Cheapside Park down in Lexington, and thought about going. I think they have music on Thursday nights, so we thought about making that trip, sometime this summer, early, within the next several weeks. I think that's what we're talking about now.
Well, I had a couple things that I think we could add to the work session. So I think that Mr. Schneider brought up a good point, and I can look into Mario going ahead and setting up some preliminary bids for the demos, and we could vote on that at a work session if we're going to have one already. And I think what Mr. Seymour said is a good point. The condemnation process is a process that flows through the unsafe building process and the building department, which is obviously separate and apart from redevelopment, but redevelopment is also purposed specifically with revitalizing an urban renewal. So I can bring, and it's not just this building, it's a few buildings even right now, and there'll be more to come. When buildings are in this process, I can bring them before the redevelopment commission and offer the redevelopment commission opportunity to buy the buildings through that process rather than going through the condemnation process. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't see a problem with that unless Mike Clark does. He usually does. Mike?
Not with that, no, but on the first part, you gotta understand, to get bids together for the demo, without us owning it, number one, I would need a legal, signed, executed entry for the city to enter upon that property. First thing we would have to do is get our environmental firm in there to do an asbestos survey.
And
that would determine whether we need to do any abatements, which I'm sure we're going to have to because of the age of those buildings. Get that taken care of, and then we could go out for bid. So it's not just as simple as, number one, saying, hey, can we just do this? I mean, we'd have to get that first. You guys would need to authorize me to cover the asbestos survey, the abatement, which no idea what that would be. Once that's completed, then, yeah, it's a 2-week turnaround on putting specs together and bidding and awarding.
And that's what I meant, and I just said it generally, but to get with you guys, and both of those front buildings have verbally agreed to let us in there, so.
But like I say, it's we do have to follow the steps.
It all flows smooth. That's your dad. So can you continue working on this property and get with the sister and see what total they want for it, so at least bring it back to us, and
I think that's a
maybe we'll
great idea.
still be able to do it
Mr.
and see what liens are on it, whether those have to be paid or we can get them taken off.
Yeah, I think that we're in as a city of Lawrenceburg, we're in a unique position to be able to revitalize in a different, more expedient way, so if that's what you want, absolutely. And I've got 2 other properties that.
Well,
are in the
earlier,
same
when I
boat.
asked you if you could explain it, that's really where I was going with this.
Okay.
What happened to it?
Okay. Well, I don't want to
No,
describe
I hear that, but
specifically.
we had no knowledge whatsoever.
Sure.
As a member of this board, I had no knowledge at all.
Sure.
And I'm glad Paul brought it up, Dan. I really am.
Any other comments from the audience? Hearing none, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
First, got a second? Second. Second by Bob. All in favor? All the secretary's missing. Meeting adjourned.
Up the stairs.
No, that's your copy, and I just want to give it to you for a second.
Wow, that was a lot.
Well, man, you didn't do a lot of writing, so you're about to screw it up. You all right, Paul? You went in one door, came in the other.
No, you can't get back in. Once you go out that other door.
Yeah, let's.
Right, Paul? You bleed? You want a Band-Aid here? I'll put it on for you.
Hey, Lee.
Oh, thank you.
State design is this guy.
All right, I'll send one out to him.
You told me to be here this evening, but let's just pay Jeff
Well,
Thomas.
Hey, Simmy.
If my skin comes
Yeah, so I don't blame him. He's putting up the stairs. Yeah.
Got a shower.
He made There wasn't anything else to say for motion to adjourn then? I appreciate it.
Hey, Brian told you to get out of here.
Tell you did good for a stinker.
Hey, Mike.
I'll be watching tomorrow.
Pardon me?
I'll be watching tomorrow unless Dell emails me that long motion. That was a long motion.
Did you get that one motion down?
No, I said I'll be watching that video, or Dell needs to email that to me. Longest motion ever. That's a long one.
Good night, Tony.
And he talks so fast. All good. Well, I'll be calling